Most people sleep through connection, then wonder why love feels like a dream they never woke up from. Let that land for a moment, my friends, because we live in a world that's gotten real good at looking but forgotten how to see. You've been told all your life that to be wanted, you've got to perform, be prettier, quieter, hotter, more mysterious. They say men are simple, that all they want is a body, a thrill, a woman who knows how to play the game. But let me ask you this, if that's true, then why are so many women doing all of that and still feeling invisible? Here's the truth they never told you. It's not your age. It's not your weight. It's not the wrinkles or the laugh lines or the fact that you've traded wild nights for quiet mornings. That man didn't drift because you stopped being sexy. He drifted because you stopped being seen, and maybe because you stopped seeing him. See, men aren't machines. They're not puzzles you can crack with YouTube tricks and lip gloss. A man's soul isn't turned on by gimmicks. It awakens when a woman dares to go where no one else has. When she stops touching him like a routine and starts touching him like a revelation. Imagine this, a car, polished on the outside, engine, untouched. You wouldn't get far, would you? That's how most relationships are today, all shine, no depth. You keep tuning the surface, hoping it'll fix the disconnect, but the ignition is buried deeper. And most people are too afraid, too impatient, or too unaware to even look for it. But not you. If you're here still listening, then something in you is waking up. Let's break some lies today. Because love isn't lost, it's buried under habits, under fear, under everything you were taught about how to keep him interested. You were told to speak softer, smile wider, touch more, need less, but no one told you the secret. Real connection doesn't come from becoming less. It comes from being more present, more grounded, more willing to see beyond the surface. Now listen closely because I'm about to show you 8 places a man longs to be touched, though he'll never say it out loud. And no, we're not talking about the obvious. This isn't some 10 ways to drive him wild nonsense. This is about energy, presence, awareness, touching the parts of him the world ignores, the ones he's hidden, even from himself. And don't worry, we're going to make this real, relatable, and a little fun too, because deep doesn't have to mean depressing. You'll laugh, you'll nod, and maybe you'll have a few oh damn moments. That's part of the magic. But stay with me. These 8 places, they aren't just physical, they're symbolic. Each one is like a forgotten room in a house you thought you knew. And when you open those doors with intention, not to impress, but to connect, you don't just bring him closer, you bring yourself back to life too. Because here's the wildest part, my friends. The way you touch him says more about how you see yourself than it does about him. You're not just waking him up, you're waking you up to your own power, your presence, your right to take up space without performing for love. So if you're tired of doing everything right and still feeling like you're not enough, stick around. We're going beyond the surface, beyond the scripts, beyond the masks. Hit that like button, subscribe if you haven't already. Not for me, for you, because this journey, it's not about being perfect. It's about being real. It's about waking up together and stay with me. Because what comes next just might change the way you love forever. Number 1, the lower back, where his armor breaks. The strongest men don't break in battle, they break in silence when no one notices the weight they've carried alone. Let that one settle in your chest, my friends, because we're starting with the one place that holds more than muscle. It holds memory, the lower back. Not the spot people rush to when they want to flirt. No, this isn't about seduction. This is about recognition. See, when a man stands tall, we assume he's unshaken. But what you don't see is the years pressing down on that spine. Not just physical pressure, but emotional pressure. The decisions he made when no one helped. The responsibility he took without being thanked. The nights he didn't sleep so someone else could. That weight, it doesn't show on his face, it lives quietly, right there in his lower back. Now picture this. He's in the kitchen fixing something, not a grand moment, just life happening. You walk up, not flirty, not needy, just present. You place your hand gently, slowly on that curve of his back. You don't say a word. You let your touch say what words can't. I see what you carry, and you don't have to carry it alone. Now I know what some of you might be thinking, but won't that feel weird? Isn't that too intimate? Yeah. What if he pulls away? And here's the truth. You're not touching to get a reaction. You're touching to give him back to himself. Because that spot, that's where his armor begins to crack. Not because he's weak, but because someone finally showed up without trying to take, only to honor. It's like pressing your palm against a dam, just enough to remind the water it doesn't have to flood to be seen. And no, it's not magic. It's not about technique. It's about intention. It's about not rushing, not performing, just being there steady like gravity. Because when a man's been holding everything together for years, the most healing thing you can do is not fix him, but simply be with him. That touch, it's not just on his body, it lands in his history. And stay with me, because the next place we're going, it's not about recognition, it's about reminding him of a kind of affection he forgot he even needed. Let's keep going, it gets deeper. Number 2, the inner arm, where innocence lives. The deepest desires aren't born from passion, they're born from safety, the kind that feels like home, not a performance. Let that sit for a second, my friends, because if the lower back is where his armor starts to slip, the inner arm is where the boy in him remembers what it meant to be loved without expectation. It's not a place people race to touch. It's not flashy, it's not seductive, and maybe that's exactly why it matters so much. Think about it. How often is that part of his body soft, sensitive, protected, touched with genuine care? Not in a moment of romance, not in a heat of the moment grab, but with stillness, with intention, with presence. Very rarely, because somewhere along the way, affection became transactional, touch became a tactic, and the kind of love that once showed up in bedtime hugs and spontaneous arm squeezes when he was a kid, it disappeared, replaced by pressure, expectations, chasing performance. But when you reach for that inner arm, not with urgency, but with calm, something ancient stirs in him. It's not arousal. It's not flirtation. It's remembrance. It tells him, you don't have to be impressive right now. You just have to be here. And I know what your mind might whisper in that moment. Isn't that too subtle? Will he even notice? Won't he think I'm being weird? Most yet. But hear me, the most powerful gestures aren't loud. They don't scream for attention. They whisper to the nervous system. They move past the body and into memory. You're not waking up his desire. You're waking up something far more sacred, his capacity to be touched without being used. And when a man feels that, when you touch the inner part of his arm with nothing but calm sincerity, he doesn't flinch. He exhales, because suddenly he remembers that once love didn't come with conditions, that maybe, just maybe, it still doesn't have to. You're not performing, you're not proving, you're reminding him of something beautiful that got buried under years of proving himself to everyone else. And that reminder, that's intimacy at its highest level. And stay with me, because next we're heading to a place that most women avoid. Not because it's too bold, but because it's too honest. And when you touch it right, trust is born. Number 3, the jawline, power and protection. A man will only lay down his sword when he trusts that your hands won't turn into weapons. Let that one echo, my friends, because now we're stepping into sacred territory, the jawline. Not just a sharp feature or a place for kisses. No, this is something deeper. This is where a man's power and fragility live side by side. You see, the jaw isn't just about looks, it's symbolic. It's where tension hides, where words get stuck, where pride holds on when the heart wants to let go. And when you touch him there, slow, present, without agenda, you're not caressing a man. You're telling his spirit, you don't have to brace yourself with me. It's a strange thing, right? How such a small gesture can speak so loud. Now imagine this moment, you're sitting beside him. The conversation is quiet, flowing, no performance, no pressure, just two people being real. You lean in, not for a kiss, not for a move, but with stillness. You place your fingers gently on the side of his jaw. Hold it there for just a second or two. No smile, no smirk, just calm eye contact. And then you release. That's it. No dramatics, no fireworks. But something in him shifts, because in that moment you're saying without words, I see what you hold back, and I honor it, not to break it, but to stand beside it. And I get it, your brain might start asking, won't he think I'm trying something? Isn't this too serious for a simple moment? What if he doesn't respond at all? But listen carefully. That response you're used to chasing, it's surface level stuff. What happens here? It's deeper. It doesn't show up in loud reactions. It shows up in still eyes, in longer breaths, in the way he stops pretending and just is. Most men are never given a space to feel strong and soft at the same time. But when you touch his jaw with intention, not ownership, not seduction, just recognition, you give him a gift no one else has. The safety to surrender without fear of being diminished. It's not dominance, it's trust. And trust, that's rarer than love. So stay with me, because next we're heading somewhere even quieter, where things most people ignore, still whisper to be seen. And when you listen, you unlock something even he forgot was still alive. Number 4, behind the knees, the unseen place. The parts we hide the deepest are the ones that ache the loudest when someone finally dares to see them. Let that settle in, my friends, because now we're entering the most unexpected territory, the space behind the knees. Strange, right? Almost feels silly to say out loud, but this place, this quiet, overlooked part of the body, holds more than you think. It's where the shadow lives, the unseen self. See, everyone's trying to touch the obvious, the lips, the chest, the hips, the places the world says are charged. But when you go somewhere he doesn't expect, where no one else ever thought to explore, you do something rare. You disarm him, not with seduction, but with recognition. Behind the knees sounds insignificant, but symbolically, it's a portal. The knees bend in surrender, in prayer, in fatigue. Behind them is vulnerability he doesn't show, places he's never toned, never flexed, never armored. So when you place your hand there, lightly, softly, as he's sitting or lying down, you're not just offering a touch, you're whispering, "I see what you've buried, and I'm not afraid of it." And yeah, I know what your mind might say. Won't he think I'm being weird? What does this even do? Isn't that just a leg? But here's the truth. A man isn't waiting for perfect moves. He's waiting for real presence, for someone who doesn't skip past the parts of him that feel irrelevant, even to himself. This is the essence of the Jungian shadow, the parts we discard because we were told they weren't worthy of light. And for men, that list runs deep. Weakness, shame, imperfection, stillness. You touch this place, and suddenly you're not a woman who wants attention. You're a woman who notices what others never bothered to find. You become unforgettable because you didn't just reach for what he shows, you reach for what he hides. And that, my friends, isn't about desire. That's about integration. That's about telling his soul, even this is welcome here. So stay with me, because next we're heading to the place where thought lives, where pressure builds, and where, with the right presence, you can give a man the one thing he's rarely ever offered: mental peace. Number 5, the scalp, the crown of thought. A man doesn't need you to fix his mind. He needs to know it's safe to bring it home. Feel that, my friends, because now we're touching the place that carries everything: his thoughts, his stress, his pressure to always know what's next, the scalp. Now, I know what you're thinking. Really? His head? Yes, but not like you've seen in movies. This isn't about stroking his hair like he's a pet. This is about mental intimacy, a connection most people skip because it's not loud or sexy, but it's real, and real stays. See, a man's head is his battlefield. It's where he calculates, where he second guesses, where the pressure to succeed, provide, protect, plan, and not mess it all up swirls on repeat. It's where doubt grows louder at 2 a.m. than any applause ever could at noon. And yet, no one ever reaches there with peace. Most people reach to distract him. You reach to ground him. Now picture this. He's lying back, not broken, but tired. You lean over, not with flirtation, but with presence. Your fingers land gently on his scalp. No tension, no hurry, just being. And in that stillness, you're not saying, "I want you." You're saying, "I'm with you." And it shifts something in him, not in his body, but in his mind. Because most men don't even realize how much noise they live with until someone shows them what quiet feels like. And maybe you're wondering, but what if he doesn't like being touched there? What if it doesn't feel like enough? And what if it's too subtle? But that's the magic. It is subtle. And that's why it's powerful, because you're not chasing a reaction. You're offering relief. You're not demanding attention. You're holding space. Touch his head with care, and you're telling him you don't have to be brilliant right now. You don't have to perform your thoughts. You're safe here, even when you don't have the answers. That, my friends, isn't flirtation. That's healing. And yes, oxytocin gets released. But this isn't science class. It's soul work. It's a woman using her presence to give a man something the world never does. Mental rest without judgment. Stay with me, because where we're going next, it's not physical at all. It's something he carries in everything he builds, holds, and moves toward. And when you speak to it, everything changes. Number 6, his voice, the portal to his purpose. A man will stop speaking when the world only hears his noise, but he'll speak forever when someone finally hears his meaning. Sit with that for a second, my friends, because this one, it's not about where you place your hand. It's about what you reflect with your words. We're talking about his voice, not the sound, not the volume, but the message he's been afraid to share for far too long. See, most people hear a man's voice and rush to correct it. Tell him to be softer, stronger, clearer, quieter. The world trains men to speak only what's needed and to do it without feeling. But behind that voice, there's a current, a story, a mission, and most of the time that gets drowned out in criticism, control, or plain old indifference. But when you listen, not just with ears, but with respect, you're telling him, I don't just hear the sound of your voice, I hear the intention behind it, and it matters. Now picture this, he's explaining something, not flashy, not poetic, just a thought, an idea, a belief he's been chewing on. And instead of nodding politely or checking your phone, you lock eyes and say it's simple, honest, and calm. I love the way you think. Your words always make me stop and reflect. That perspective, I haven't heard it like that before. You just did more than compliment him. You gave him back his voice. And yes, I know what might come up in your heads. But what if he's not the expressive type? What if he shrugs it off? What if I sound like I'm exaggerating? But hear me, this isn't about hype. This is about recognition. You're not feeding his ego. You're feeding his conviction. Because when you speak to a man's mind with that kind of sincerity, he starts to believe that what's inside him is worth being heard, not just tolerated. Men don't always want applause. They want alignment, someone to say, I get what you're trying to say, and I believe in why you're saying it. And when a woman meets a man there, not in the performance, but in the purpose, his voice doesn't just speak louder, it speaks freer. Stay with me, because next we're heading to the place where action lives, the place he uses to build, to protect, to shape the world. And when you touch it right, it's not about control, it's about honoring the legacy he's trying to leave behind. Number 7, his hands, the tools of his becoming. A man's hands are where his heart shows up without asking for credit. Let that one breathe, my friends. Because if there's one part of him the world constantly uses but rarely honors, it's his hands. Those hands build, they lift, they fix, they carry the weight of survival, of protection, of quiet acts of love that no one ever applauds. But how often do they get seen? We praise a man's results, not his effort. We notice the paycheck, not the early mornings. We admire the finished house, not the bruised knuckles. His hands, they're the tools of his becoming. And when you touch them, not like they're an afterthought, but like they're sacred, you're saying, I see what you're creating, even when no one else does. Picture this, he's sitting at the table, scrolling through stress, drinking his coffee like it's fuel, not comfort. You reach across, not to grab attention, but to connect. You rest your hand in his, not with pressure, not with need, just stillness. And you say quietly, like it's the most obvious truth in the world, what you build matters. I see the care in these hands. Thank you for showing up like this, even when it's hard. And in that moment, you give him something the world rarely gives a man, validation without condition. Now, maybe you're wondering, but isn't that too simple? Won't he just laugh it off? What if he doesn't know how to take a compliment? But here's what you need to understand. Men don't forget what makes them feel seen. They may not show it with tears or long speeches, but touch their hands with reverence and something in them softens. Not into weakness, but into openness. You're not just touching skin, you're touching his intentions, his exhaustion, his silent victories, because those hands have held burdens he never named. And when someone holds them back, not to take, but to honor, he begins to feel like he's more than just what he can do. He starts to believe that who he is matters too. And that belief, that's the beginning of loyalty, of intimacy, of home. So stay with me, my friends, because where we're heading next isn't just the quietest place. It's the most powerful, the place most women fear, but the one that holds the key to everything, his silence. Number 8, his silence, the most sacred space of all. Silence isn't the absence of love. It's the space where truth waits to be met without fear. Let that one echo in your chest, my friends. Because now we've arrived at the final and most sacred space of all, his silence. Not the awkward silence, not the cold shoulder. I'm talking about that still, heavy quiet that wraps around him when he's thinking too much, feeling too deep, or carrying more than he knows how to say. Most women fear this space. They try to fill it with words, questions, noise. They think, is something wrong? Is he pulling away? Did I do something? But let me tell you something that will change everything. His silence is not rejection. It's a test, a sacred one. Because in that silence, he's watching. He's feeling. He's asking without saying a word. Will you try to fix me or will you sit with me? Do I have to explain myself to be loved, or can I just be and still be safe? The awakened woman doesn't rush to rescue him. She doesn't panic when the room goes quiet. She knows that stillness is a love language too. Imagine this. He's lying back, quiet, not distant, just inside himself. You don't poke, you don't prod, you just lean in gently, maybe your hand on his chest or nothing at all, just your presence, just your breath. You say softly, you don't have to talk right now. I'm not going anywhere. That's power, that's intimacy, that's home. And maybe your old self would ask, but won't he think I don't care? What if we grow apart in the silence? Isn't love about constant communication? But here's the truth. Real love isn't loud. It doesn't need to fill every gap. Sometimes the most healing thing you can do is say nothing and just stay. Because when you can meet him in his silence and not demand a performance, you become unforgettable. That silence, that's not a void. That's where his soul waits. And the woman who knows how to walk into that room without fear is the woman he lets stay. If you've made it this far, you're not just curious, you're ready. Ready to love with intention, not fear. These 8 places aren't just about touching a man. They're about awakening presence, connection, and depth within yourself. Remember, real intimacy doesn't start in the body, it starts in how you see. So if this stirred something in you, don't keep it to yourself. Like this video, subscribe for more soul-level conversations, and share it with someone who's done with surface love and ready for something real. Stay grounded, stay glowing, and I'll see you in the next one.